Hey guys, what's up? Today we're doing a very special review for the game called The Last of Us, developed by Naughty Dog. I have been waiting a long time for this game. I have been feverishly just scratching myself to be able to play the full game, let alone to do a review for it. And I hope you can appreciate this review because I've got a lot to discuss and I won't be wasting any more of your time. Let's jump straight into it. So where I like to start off with is always the story, and the story of The Last of Us follows our main protagonists Joel and Ellie, and they are on a quest to go state to state all across America to try and find a group called the Fireflies. Set to a backdrop of a post-apocalyptic looking America set in the year of 2033, a virus has swept throughout the United States of America, transforming all of its denizens into bloodthirsty, rabid, fungal infected monsters. And by the way, this virus spreads via spore form, which is quite original by itself. Usually it's zombies or something like that, but in this case they're called infected. It's a true tale of survival, and it really does chronicle what would happen to someone during, or should I say, what would happen to a person in this situation. I think we've all brought this up in discussion. What would you do during a zombie apocalypse? And a lot of the decisions that Joel and Ellie have to make are often life and death situations. It really does push the moral boundaries for them, and it pushes them past the brink of humanity and reasoning. So when talking about the story of The Last of Us as a whole, I must say it's set to such a strong and solid foundation, and I'm talking about post-apocalyptic films and games. Mainly films such as I Am Legend or Cloverfield offer tried and tested elements which have already been discussed, which have already been showcased. But The Last of Us really does pull back a more naked, a very much stripped back version of in a post-apocalyptic world, and it really does deliver a very harrowing, a very emotionally draining and touching story. So when it comes to the characters of The Last of Us, just like the story, I was equally captivated. I was with these characters at every single twist and turn, to the point in which I felt the characters were myself. It felt like, I call it the no screen in between. It felt like at times that I was not separated by a screen. I really was these characters, and Naughty Dog have really perfected the art here of creating a very narrative driven, a very character driven experience. That's exactly what they're good at. They're very good at doing this, and I was totally with these characters. And when trying to discuss these characters, I won't be going into too much depth because I don't want to blow it for you guys. They don't hint it, but I think Joel is the main character here. A very strong, masculine character, or should I say, a very strong, well-developed male character to have in this sort of game. He carries a lot of burdens though. He is really haunted by the ghosts of his past, and he doesn't like revealing what happened during his past, especially when it comes to Ellie. And when it comes to his story arc, I must say there is some redemption there. And I found this guy really, really likable, and I really wanted to guide him through this hell. When it comes to Ellie, I must say she's the complete opposite. She's only 14 years old, but this girl can swear like a sailor. She's not like any other 14-year-old girl I've ever heard in my life. And honestly, I think she is my favourite video game character of all time. That's how good her character is. Not to the point in which she's just swearing and stuff like that, but she's so mature, she's so far beyond her years in maturity. She knows how to handle herself. She's deeply passionate about those around her, especially when it comes to Marlene and Joel in the end. There's just something so likable, something so inspiring about her character. She brings joy to the table, and if you ask me, Ellie stole the show for me. I don't know if Joel's the main character, but Ellie takes the cake. On the topic of Naughty Dog, I must commend them for making such strong female characters, and I'm talking about characters from the Uncharted series like Elena Fisher and Chloe Fraser. They really don't make female characters just to be eye candy. They don't make them just to move the plot along or to be a distraction. These women are extremely strong, extremely well developed, and are very personable. They are very much like a normal woman would be like nowadays, and I'm mainly referring to Ellie. I swear to God, she just sold it to me. That girl is incredible. Also, I found that a lot of the characters in The Last of Us acted as emotional satellites for Joel. As he doesn't really do much talking, he's really quite mute throughout the most of the game. He reveals glimpses about what happened in his life, and a lot of the characters such as Mary, his brother Tommy, and Ellie all pull out different emotions from this character. That's why I refer to them as emotional satellites. When it comes to the characters in general, I was thoroughly impressed, but then again, I've come to expect that Naughty Dog are masters at creating such likeable, well-rounded, extremely developed characters. So, for me, perfection. Also, as a little side note, I must commend the voice actors, Troy Baker, who voices Joel, and Ashley Johnson, who voices Ellie. They've done an impeccable job. They really sold it, they really delivered it, they made it believable, they made it so fantastic and engaging to play. Like, hats off to you guys are fucking incredible. So the gameplay of The Last of Us is mainly a third-person action adventure with a huge emphasis on stealth, integrating also some very light survival horror moments. Dynamic stealth, as it's been dubbed by the team at Naughty Dog, offers a more strategic and a more realistic approach to enemies. Enemies respond differently to how you would react to them. For example, if you were to open fire on them, they would take cover behind different areas or obstacles to try and obstruct your view of trying to shoot them. If they suspect that you're in the area nearby, they will tell other guards and tell them to fan out and look for you. And it was such a realistic, such a simple yet effective method to introduce to the gameplay. Why hasn't the game done this sooner? It's just simply a no-brainer. What I really loved about the gameplay is this feature that they introduced in which Joel would listen to the enemies. For example, he would be behind some cover and you cannot see the enemy if you hold down the R2 button. You'd be able to listen out to the enemies and pinpoint where they are in the arena. So it made gameplay a lot more varied, added a lot more strategic balances to the gameplay, and it was a thoroughly enjoyable yet another brainless implementation to integrate into the gameplay. Scavenging for items was also a core focus in the gameplay, being a survival of the fittest game. You really did have to find a lot of different items here to boost up your weapons. Makeshift weaponry is also a very nice implementation, allowing you to create weapons such as nail bombs, Molotov cocktails, shiv knives, and other such weaponry. Crafting weapons at the workbench using your scavenged items was quite rare to find. I didn't find a lot of these dotted around the place, and I wish I'd been a little bit more strategic, because they're so far and in between in which you don't get to upgrade your weapons that it does really, you really do have to think strategically about how you would upgrade your weapons, because if you missed out, it was going to be a long time until you got to the next weapon bench. There are other elements of the gameplay which are quite typical at first. You have puzzles, some partner zapping here, moving ladders, finding planks, finding pallets so that Ellie can move across large bodies of water, as she cannot swim unfortunately. All in all, there was just enough variation to keep it flexible and to keep you on your toes. And what I also really loved about the implementation of the puzzles is that it felt very organic. It was a no-brainer thing to do. Like, if you're outside in someone's backyard and you needed to reach an adjacent building, there would be a plank there or something of that nature. And the puzzles didn't seem out of hand, and it flowed together with the gameplay so perfectly, I thought. Enemy variation in The Last of Us was by no means expensive. It's quite a limited repertoire of enemies you get to fight. Different variations of infected, as well as different survivors which you must kill to progress throughout the level, offered some unique challenges. Even though there weren't a lot of enemies, they were thoroughly impressive when you get to see them. Like, for example, there's nothing like seeing 5 clickers in one room and debating how you would get on the other side of that room without alerting any of them. The only thing I can slightly criticise this game for was the finicky gunplay. I did find that the gunplay wasn't as smooth as the melee combat, for example. Joel would be trying to shoot at an enemy, but the AI would be so fidgety, they would keep moving around, it would be so hard to get a beat on them, let alone a headshot. And also with the headshots, I did find that the hit detection was off a little bit. For example, when I shot someone in the head, the blinker would have these little indicators saying that you got a headshot, yet the enemy would get right back up and start shooting again. I found this a little bit off, but this does not deter the gameplay whatsoever. It's just one little hiccup I found in the gameplay, and that definitely does not outweigh the marvellous gameplay elements that Naughty Dog had brought to this game. Okay, when it comes to the graphics of The Last of Us, I was absolutely mind-blown. Graphics are the best I've seen in a video game, bar none, no ifs, no buts, to the point in which the character models look so realistic so well crafted that here's real people and here's the graphics of The Last of Us. It was just a punch below realism, and I really like the fact that they paid close attention to details such as clothing textures. They looked almost tangible, to the point in which you could pretty much put a hand through the screen and stroke the fabric and feel it. It just felt so real, as well as blood flecks were incredibly realistic, tears pouring down their face, rain on the windows, blood spatters, everything was incredibly realistic, and I have nothing to fault the graphics on. They were just simply out of this world. I also want to mention the gorgeous locations of this game. There are a lot of arenas for you to explore. Don't get the feeling that you're in just for one arena in one city. You do travel through a lot of different states. For example, you travel through Boston, Lincoln, Pittsburgh and Salt Lake City, each town offering their own unique feel with their own use of different architecture, which feels very personable, which feels very unique to each other. I was also thoroughly impressed with a lot of the internal architecture. I'm talking about a lot of the houses that you have to scavenge for items. They looked so derelict, but it honestly looked like people were living in them once upon a time. It adds to the sense of realism like no other, and to the point where I stopped myself and just looking in awe and reading the pictures on the wall, looking at photos, different paintings, etc, etc. I have not stopped and looked at an environment for so long like The Last of Us done to me. I could really be there all day just taking in all the environments, and it was just overall exquisite to look at. Also, lastly, ending up the graphics section, I do want to add in the soundtrack of The Last of Us. I got my soundtrack with my Joel edition that I got, don't fret. I will reserve that for another video, and I'll show you all the contents that I got. The music of The Last of Us was very reflective. It's very much an emotional piece. There's a lot of guitar pieces in there, and the score does definitely come across as very somber, moody and melancholic. But yet I found when I listen to it there's bits of hope in there as well, and that's why I think that the score reflects the game so perfectly. It was just beautiful to listen to the point in which I'm not going to say I had tears in my eyes, but I was pretty close. Oh boy. In summary of The Last of Us, I must say this is the best game I have played, bar none. This generation, last generation, of all time, this is the best game I have ever experienced, and the credit really goes to Naughty Dog. They are really the masters of their craft. They have perfected the art of finesse, they have perfected the character development, the strong narrative, the gorgeous graphics, the outstanding visuals. All in all, it is a simply fantastic game. It's so funny because if this is going to be the end of the 7th generation of console hardware that we're currently using, The Last of Us is a perfect send-off, and for Xbox owners who don't have a PS3, I would advise you to get The Last of Us, or if you don't have a PS3, pick up a PS3 for The Last of Us, I beg you, because if Heavy Rain and Uncharted and Metal Gear Solid 4 wasn't incentive enough, I promise you The Last of Us is definitely worth it. I mean, I picked up the PS3 for Heavy Rain, and I'm so glad that I did, and I think you should too. So my final words for The Last of Us is that it is a flawless declaration of artistry, intelligence, strong narrative, brilliant characters, amazing graphics. All in all, a simply jaw-dropping game. I'm going to be remembering this game for such a long time. I will be playing it in 10 years from now. As soon as I finished the game, I went back and started up another game immediately. And a game hasn't done that to me since Resident Evil 4, and that was back in like 2002, I believe. Such a long time ago. But The Last of Us is really here to stand the test of time, and it really does make you feel like you're a part of the game. That sounds really corny, I know. Oh boy, I better stop now. So thank you very much for watching my review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you guys want to add in your own feedback, positive or negative, you can leave that in the comments section below. Let me know how you guys felt about the game, because I am practically gushing about it. I would make love to it if I could. Oh boy. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.